screen starts glowing, and the film starts rolling. You wanna be knowing what you might be in for. So give the show a listen and find out what you're missing. Put yourself in position for the easy good score.
Hey everyone, and welcome to The Goods, a film podcast. This is episode 199. How you doing, Dan?
Good, Brian. We're on the cusp of something great. Bicentennial.
Every time we get together for something like this is something great. Each episode has something great to offer the world.
I like that. And I really like that. That's from that's the way Garth Brooks says it in his Welcome to Facebook video. I really like that.
Have you explained the Garth Brooks Facebook intro on pod before?
I don't know, so I can do it very briefly now, but I think it's from like 2014 or something. Garth Brooks uploaded a video of him welcoming his users to his Facebook page, and it's hilariously corny, bordering on creepy, and there's just a lot of funny turns of phrases in there. One is that he says he's going to post on his page cool stuff, slick stuff, neat stuff, but most of it's going to be raw stuff. And so Brian got me for Christmas a t-shirt that says cool stuff, slick stuff, neat stuff, raw stuff. And then he also says, and my friend told me, think of it as a conversation. And I really like that. And there's just a lot of goofy stuff in it. So maybe I could, if you Google Garth Brooks' first Facebook post, you'll find it. Maybe I'll post it on our Discord at thegoodsfilmpodcast.com. Come join us.
You can join our fan base where our users interface with us.
And we'd really like that.
But you're right. We're almost to episode 200. I'm excited to see what you got planned for that one, Dan. We try to make the big numbers significant in some way. I remember, so you picked episode 100. That was when we watched the remake of Suspiria, which was a callback to our very first episode. We talked the original Dario Argento Suspiria, and then episode 100 was the 2018 version. I did episode 99, and I picked Fantastic Planet, which was a movie that when we recorded episode 1, I said, someday we'll talk Fantastic Planet. It was like on the list. Got a name drop in episode 1, so I thought that felt significant.
50 was, I think we recorded it in person while we were on a trip together, Gravity Falls.
That's right. So that one I hosted, and that was probably my most monumental episode so far, because it was Gauntlet episode 100. We took the trip, the podcast field trip, to go interview Aaron Fechter with his Rockafire Explosion robot band. That's
right. And all of Gravity Falls, I think we estimated it was 1,000 total minutes of content that we discussed for that episode. And then 150, I think, was a Christmas Carol episode. Which, that's monumental too.
Oh, yes. That's true. Today's episode is nowhere near as substantial. It's nothing special, really, other than we are in a theme month, and the theme is Dad Month. So movies about fathers, movies about dads, maybe they got dad in the title. Today's film has dad in the title. It's Ghost Dad from 1990.
Ghost Dad. I mean, I will credit to the movie. You know what you're getting yourself into. This delivers exactly what the title promises. There is a ghost dad throughout the large majority of this film. He's a dad, but he's a ghost.
Right. If you got the executive in the elevator, this one's easy to pitch. Stop me if you've heard this one. Ghost Dad. Now, this one stars Bill Cosby. It's a 1990 film, and he was kind of making the jump from TV to movies, or trying to. The Cosby Show had been like the biggest show on TV for, 5 or 6 years? It was on a long time. Says it aired 1984 to 1992. But what do big TV stars do? They try to become movie stars, and it doesn't always work. Got to pick the right material.
And you got to be the right star. You got to be Tom Hanks, you know?
Right. But some of Cosby's films from around this time, Ghost Dad and Leonard Part 6, not particularly well regarded at the time or since. And on that note, obviously, Cosby's reputation has taken a nosedive in subsequent years.
It's a gentle way of putting it, yeah. Is he still in prison? He was in prison.
He got out at one point. I should have read more on the legal history. I think they found some technicality that got him out, but also that he's an old man. Right.
So he's quite old, actually. He's like, isn't he almost 90 or something like that?
I think so.
I'm going to look it up. He's 87 years old. Wow. By the way, if you search Bill Cosby age, the other recommended searches are R. Kelly age. So that's how you know you're in good shape.
Right. Good company.
So, I mean, I assume most of our listeners know about this. I kind of feel like, Brian, we are maybe on the tail end of people for whom like Bill Cosby was like a central pop culture figure, you know? Because he was in, like you said, that popular TV show, but he was more than that. He was like he was doing commercials, and he was the face of like specials, and he sponsored like that Fat Albert show, and he was more than just the star of one show, you know?
Right. He was a creator. He put his brand on various things, like executive producer. I mean, he was hosting Kids Say the Darndest Things. He had Little Bill on Nick Jr.
And he is even before the allegations came out, kind of a complicated figure. I mean, so obviously he's black.
Not a complicated figure just for that.
No, but because he was, you know, maybe the most famous black person in America besides Michael Jackson, he kind of served as like a counterpoint to some of the other currents going on in black culture, like the rise of hip hop and gangster rap and a lot of you know, there's a lot of dark stuff going on with, you know, there's the Rodney King riots and all these things. I don't know exactly timeline where that falls in, but Cosby presented like a very different kind of image as a black figure. He was like the wholesome suburban dad. He was the jolly, tough loving, but white collar, upper middle class dad.
Right. He was like buttoned down, work within the system to get ahead.
And I don't know if all of his comedy was like PG rated. Is he one of the people who didn't use swear words, maybe?
Yeah, I think he was fairly a clean comic.
And he did have some real popular comedy albums. And so he kind of presented himself as a version of America's Dad. I know that's what some people call Tom Hanks these days, America's Dad. But Bill Cosby was kind of that figure. And I think for like people who are a few years older than us, his downfall has got to be like one of the bigger American celebrity downfalls. I mean, another one, if you're into sports, like the Penn State football team was always regarded as like the peak of character and what sports is all about. And then it turned out that it was covering up systemic child sexual assault. And now here's Bill Cosby, and it came out that he basically had been drugging and raping women for decades and was covered up because he was rich, you know, and obviously tragic and nasty. And the thing that's really kind of puts it in sharp relief, I think, is like you always have famous people who are getting caught doing bad things. Famous people, they think they're powerful and immune to consequences. And then in many cases, not all cases, but in many cases, it eventually comes around and bites them and it gets out, you know. part of what makes it so hard for Cosby is that pretty much everything that he does is built around his brand as being the family-friendly guy, you know? Like The Cosby Show, being in Ghost Dad. He's Bill Cosby being Bill Cosby, you know? So, like, when Bill Cosby has a downfall, that subsequently ruins everything that he's in. Because now you're thinking about, oh, wait, this is a movie about that guy who's in prison for raping women for decades.
Yeah, it's like if Mr. Rogers was doing that, you know, the other sweater celebrity.
Right. So I've seen a couple episodes of The Cosby Show, but I don't know. Wasn't he on like Sesame Street and stuff? And I remember I watched an NFL draft and he was like hanging around there interviewing athletes. He's just the kind of guy who would show up New Year's shows. You know, he'd just always be around.
Right. And he did the Jell-O Jiggler commercials.
Mm-hmm.
Pudding Pops. He was, of course, parodied on The Simpsons and Family Guy, and he was a known guy. And if you look at like television history, the rankings of like what was the number one show each year, the list is just like dominated. There's like a solid decade of I Love Lucy. There's a solid decade of All in the Family. There's a decade of Cosby Show. And then like the only thing that's had that staying power since is like American Idol.
Or what was the 4-letter,
MASH?
one of the procedural ones? No.
NCIS?
Probably that one, yeah. I feel like those ones...
Yeah, that's true.
At least that brand is kind of the dominant one now, you know?
Right.
So had you seen Ghost Dad before, Brian?
I had never seen Ghost Dad before.
Okay.
And that's why I like theme months. They tend to prod me to bring to the table movies I haven't previously watched. That's like my go-to is pick something I've seen that I know I want to talk about. Because blind picks can be a crapshoot. You don't know what you're going to get.
Mm-hmm.
But here we at least know it's going to involve a dad who is a ghost. It doesn't lie to you.
So before we dive in, Brian, so this is a theme month, and one tradition we have for theme months is we like to talk about a topic each week related to the theme. And so I was wondering, Brian, for today's dad-related topic, who are some of your favorite pop culture dads? Movies or TV shows, etc.?
It's a good question. I think my favorite TV dad, just primarily in terms of being funny, maybe a little bit, I see some of him in my dad, but it's Hugh Neutron. Jimmy Neutron's father.
I did not expect you to say that. If you had given me 100 guesses, I would have had a hard time coming up with that one.
I think he's really funny. He just has a weird energy. Like many TV fathers of recent decades, he's kind of like a parody of the 1950s sitcom fathers. Specifically like Ward Cleaver, who was played by Hugh Beaumont on Leave It to Beaver, and actually his name is Hugh Beaumont Neutron.
Oh,
so like
interesting.
very much like satirizing that, but he's just kind of goofy and off the wall. As far as like who is on TV that is a good father, I think Homer Simpson, actually, in the sense that he's like true to his family, really looks out for his kids, listens to his kids. Of course, there's been so many Homer Simpsons over the years. He does so many different things, 700 episodes or whatever. But he stays in the pop culture.
Right. You can't necessarily say Homer Simpson is blank because over however many hundreds of episodes, I mean, am I crazy, or have they passed 1,000, or are they coming up on 1,000?
It's probably close. They're in like season 35 or 36.
So that many episodes, you're going to have a lot of different versions. But kind of the core Homer Simpson, I remember reading that like one of the tenets of the writer's room is that you'll never seriously believe that like the Simpson nuclear family's future is in question, and that they don't like that. It should always be clear that they care about each other and are there for each other and like operate as a unit. The Marge and Homer aren't going to seriously get a divorce unless it's like one high concept episode where they're investigating that, you know. It's not like even though they bicker, there's core love underneath, I think, in general.
Right. What comes to mind for you?
I have a couple. One that I just really enjoy is from the OC, Sandy Cohen, with the big bushy eyebrows. And he's just got sort of like a sturdiness in character, but he's also kind of goofy. And he just seems like a dad that you'd want. He goes surfing. He's fun, but he's not like cool. So I always like Sandy Cohen from the OC. A couple others. I mean, I feel like, to me, if you're going to allow, I guess it's movie and books, but if you're going to allow like a more serious example, Atticus Finch is just sterling. He's iconic. He's a moral pillar. Teaches you to let justice and dignity shine through in your actions, even if it's unpopular, you know. I probably have a couple others in there. One of my favorites is going to be the subject of our 200th episode, Brian. So hold that thought until the end when I share that. But I'm looking for that. Worst dads, maybe Darth Vader. I mean, I don't know.
That's right, because in addition to ruling the galaxy for evil intentions, he's also a deadbeat.
Yeah.
Not there for his kids.
He kills the younglings. He hates sand. What about Albert Brooks in Finding Nemo?
That's a good one.
Wait, is that Albert Brooks? Is that right?
Yeah, it is. It is as Marlin.
He's at least memorable, I think.
Yeah, Finding Nemo is a really good movie. I think we've shouted out Finding Nemo before. Probably when we did the top 100, I think Dan had it on there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, listeners, send us your favorite dads. Who are your favorite movie dads? Drop them in the Discord. We'd love to hear it from you. That's at thegoodsfilmpodcast.com.
Right, and you've got all month to think about it. We're doing all dads all month.
Okay, Brian, I think, though we have trepidation about it, it might be time to discuss Ghost Dad.
The time has come. We got to dive in. I don't actually think this episode will be that long. I do have some thoughts about the movie, but not too many. In Ghost Dad, Bill Cosby plays a dad, a guy named Elliot Hopper, and he's a single father of 3 children. Now, the wife died at some point, he says, a few years ago or something, a couple years ago. We don't get a whole lot of specifics about what happened to the mom, I don't think. But he's got a daughter who is like a senior in high school, something like that. Basically, almost grown. And then 2 younger kids, a boy who's like 10-ish and a girl who's young.
Yeah, like 6-ish or something.
Yeah. He's got a weird dynamic with the eldest daughter.
This actually confused me at the start of the movie because I was like, "What? Hold on. So is she the stepmom? What's going on with her?" And then not too long afterwards, we learned that he's got a girlfriend, sort of, and she doesn't look all that different from the older daughter, I thought. And so I was like, and then they like blows a kiss at her or whatever. I was like, what is going on with this movie?
Yeah, it's weird. I think I would have been more confused had I not read Gargus's review, which said the dynamic with the oldest daughter is strange. But she's very much in the position where she's got to be a mother to her siblings because the mom has died. She also, though, seems to be a wife to the dad. Like, they discuss family affairs, like management of the household. So it's a little odd. But yeah, like the next door neighbor or the across the street neighbor is also this woman who is interested in Bill Cosby's character and trying to establish a relationship with him. But he's like a workaholic. He's always out at the office grinding. He's on that 80s businessman grind, trying to climb the ladder. And so the first scene of the movie is we're just hearing his voice. We're not seeing him. because he's absent. He's out at work, and the kids are hearing him through a tape recording. It's like a series of tape recordings. He's got all these tape players rigged up to like get them ready for bed when he's not there. I was thinking of Tourist Trap that we watched, where the mom does this, and that's how the movie starts out, is she's like communicating with them through an answering machine tape.
Right. It's like a way to let you know that they do care about the family, but also they're not very present because of life busyness and work and all that.
Right. And it seems like this theme of dad works all the time and can't be with the kids. Like, I see so many movies from around this time period where that's the issue. Yeah,
like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles had that a little bit.
Definitely, that's one I thought of. Also, Hook is dealing with this.
I think it's like the tail end of the yuppie movement, of the career-focused push. But his job is like very generic business. You're going to deal with negotiations, and you're going to do mergers, and you're going to talk to representatives and stuff. And I just thought it was kind of funny. So one thing is, when we never, I don't think, ever see a black coworker. So I wondered if this movie was very subtly also like trying to have an element of like, it's hard to be a black man in corporate America, you know? But if it does, it's minuscule. It not really interrogated at all.
Right. I think that idea is there, at least.
Mm-hmm.
But I read that the film, in like early development stages, they thought that Steve Martin might play the lead.
Oh, interesting.
Which would have called to mind even more Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Right.
But this movie was directed by Sidney Poitier. Believe it or not.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, whoa. He's one of the great actors. He was, in some ways, his legacy is a little complicated. I think mostly we generally view it positively, retrospectively, but he was kind of like, if you needed a black actor in a serious movie, you called Sidney. And so he was kind of typecast and in roles that were sometimes degrading and like stereotypical of black caricature in the 40s, 50s, 60s, whenever he was active. Which then he kind of reclaimed a little bit in, what was the famous one in like 67 where he slapped the guy? They call me Mr. Tibbs.
Yeah, so the ones that I think he's best known for are Guess Who's Coming to Dinner and In the Heat of the Night, where he is basically showing the humanity of his character and the inherent respectability, just the substance of his character. Right? It's not the color of the skin, it's the substance of the character.
Right.
So I think that idea is there a little bit of the black person making it in the white corporate structure, and that is hard, that the deck is stacked against them. That's what Bill Cosby's character is up against a little. But it doesn't beat you over the head with that. The bedtime story that he's reading on the tape recorder to his youngest daughter is called The Canterville Ghost by Oscar Wilde. Have you ever heard this story before, Dan?
No.
All right, so I've got a Canterville Ghost anecdote because I remember Zany Brainy back in the day. Did you ever go to Zany Brainy, Dan?
I did a couple of times. It was like a Cool Kids Gizmos store, right?
Right. So it was like the gifted and talented children's store. Like, if you think you have a smart child, or you want to believe you have a smart child, you shop at Zany Brainy for them. It's got like that veneer of academic leanings, but everything in there was there's a name for this art style. Oh man, I gotta look this up and post it in our Discord, which everybody, again, you should join. It's like a school of design that they used in the 90s where everything was kind of squiggly and had bright, solid, clashing colors. It's like the jazz cups at Taco Bell. It's the purple booths. It's everything that Nickelodeon was doing around this time. Like, Nickelodeon sold alarm clocks with, like, orange and green zigzags on them.
So I associate that with vaporwave. I don't think that's the name of the aesthetic style. That's like a music, though, right?
Right. So that's definitely the vein that I'm talking about. It's not the term I'm looking for, but you get what I'm laying down.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know, retrofuturism or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. It's like new googie.
New googie.
I think it's got school in the name. I'll find it by the end of the episode. But what was my point? Oh, Zany Brainy. Had that look, had that feel when you walk into this place.
I just Googled it, and it might be Memphis Design.
There it is. Memphis Design is what this look is called. It's the 90s look. Only 90s kids remember.
When you think 90s, you think Memphis Design.
Yeah. But I loved Zany Brainy back in the late 90s. I liked to go to this place. And one of the times that I went there, it was around Halloween season. And so they were like selling various spooky themed items. And over the loudspeakers in Zany Brainy, they were playing this like storybook tape. And it was ghost stories. But the big featured story on the tape was a reading of the Canterville Ghost. And the hook of the Canterville Ghost is that, like, these people, these well-to-do Victorians move into a classic haunted house, and it's haunted by, like, this knight or something, some gentleman from an earlier era who does the usual Jacob Marley shtick, and he's like rattling the chains and spilling blood on the carpet and stuff that sounds scary when it's described. I would probably be scared of this ghost, but he fails to scare the family. They're like modern and progressive, and they try to meet the ghost halfway and are like questioning him of like, what are you really trying to get at, Mr. Ghost? And so it's trafficking in the ghost tropes, but like questioning them a little bit.
Interesting.
And like satirizing the ghost stereotypes. And anyway, I bought the cassette tape, or my folks bought the cassette tape when we were there at Zany Brainy. So I knew this story. I knew when we got a little snippet of it. It's like, oh, that's the Canterville Ghost. And then they show the book cover. Like the daughter is looking at the pictures.
So that's interesting. So do you think that echoes out into the rest of the story at all? Is it referencing that at all?
I think a little, in the sense that it is a ghost comedy. And like, what does it mean to be a ghost? What do you have to do to be a ghost? What is the ghost lived experience?
So when you were describing that story, what it made me think of is this film that came out last year, or I guess at this point it's 2025, so I should say 2 years ago, 2023. And it's called We Have a Ghost. And it's actually made by the guy who made Happy Death Day and Happy Death Day 2. And then he also made another novelty slasher called Freaky, which is a body swap slasher. So after like 3 novelty slashers, he made We Have a Ghost. And the premise is this family moves into a house that has a ghost. And basically, I mean, what you described is like, they decide like, oh, well, we're kind of okay with there being a ghost in this house. We're going to figure out how to share the space and work on, come to terms with there being a ghost here. And it kind of spins out into this whole media satire because it gets out that there's a ghost that you can come see. And it's kind of a messy movie, but it has a couple interesting ideas in it. And the ghost is played by David Harbour, who's like, he just shows up in different stuff. Do you know him?
Yeah, he's kind of having a moment these last half decade or so. He was in Stranger Things.
Yeah.
But he was the Santa in Violent Night, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so he's definitely got things going for him these days. Zany Brainy did not stick around long after the late 90s, but the businessman behind the shops started Five Below. So if you've been to Five Below, you've been to one of his business enterprises.
Okay. I do like Five Below.
You know, it's slightly more upscale dollar stores. More expensive, you can get a little more for $5. We know from the poster in the lobby that Ghost Dad involves a dad who becomes a ghost. So at the start of the movie, he's alive, and you're wondering, how is Bill Cosby going to die? And they milk that for a while. There's a lot of fake out, oh, this is going to be what causes him to become deceased.
So funny. Wow. I actually did kind of enjoy this stretch, though, like, because it we get some, like, kind of practical effects with, like, oh, is the elevator going to drop while he's in it? Oh, what's going on with, I don't know. I don't know if you're about to talk through all of what these are, but, like, a crazy cab ride and, like, just all sorts of, like, things that put him in near-death scenarios.
Yeah, it's like a roller skate on the stairs. Oh, but even more than that, like, it's the daughter's birthday and her name is Diane. And he, like, because he's a workaholic, he forgets her birthday. And so he's standing there at the top of the stairs and he's like, happy birthday. Remind me of your name. And she's like trying to prompt him. And he's standing at the top of the stairs about to trip on this roller skate. And she's like, it's die. And she's saying, die. And he's about to have a pratfall down the stairs. So it's really baked into the movie of, haha, we all know he's about to be a dead person.
But it's like, it's pitched like an 80s sitcom movie. So it's like, there's just some wild tonal challenges that I would say are just completely bungled by this film. It's like, oh, wow, you're a single dad caring for 3 people and you die. That's too bad. Let's make a bunch of cheesy jokes about it. And, like, I could never quite, like, get in its wavelength because it's, like, trying to do both of those things, you know?
Yeah. And so this also had me thinking of movies where the dad dies and has to, like, come back as something to maintain a relationship with the family. I was thinking of Jack Frost, the one where he comes back as a snowman.
I've never seen that one. Is that Tim Allen?
I think it is the guy from The Founder, Michael Keaton.
Oh, Michael Keaton. That's right. That rings a bell.
Yeah. Apparently, originally it was going to be George Clooney, and, like, the Jim Henson Creature Shop built a puppet that was supposed to evoke George Clooney, and then the actor changed. I actually don't think it looks like George Clooney, but it doesn't look like Michael Keaton either. But it's a snowman, so I guess I'm willing to give some grace, but just kind of strange. Anyway. I mean, I guess having your father be a snowman is better than having no presence at all. I also saw some parallels to Soul from 2019, the Pixar movie. Did you see any of that?
Interesting. Hit me up. What's the Soul comparison?
Well, there's a couple, and more as the movie goes along. But in Soul, well, he's African American, but we had the foreknowledge that he's going to die. And so in the first act of Soul, there's some of this, of like, oh, this is going to be what kills him. Oh, like he steps out of the street, he almost gets hit by a car. Or like an air conditioning unit falls out of a window. And there's a couple of these beats until what actually happens? I think he falls down a manhole.
That sounds right. I only saw it like right when it came out and went on Disney Plus. So I need to go revisit that one.
But also it has like a lot of rules. And actually there are ways that people on the mortal plane can convene with the ghost plane. And so, and the idea of, oh, the ghost can go into different bodies. And then you have to grapple with that. I actually thought there were like 5 or 6 significant beats between this and Soul, Like, they may have been watching Ghost Dad and taking notes.
Yeah, I also feel like there's some movies, I'm trying to remember what they are, where like they get to either relive their last day or they get like one more shot at life or something like that. I feel like that's at least that's almost a trope that happens not infrequently in stories, you know?
That's true. One of the things that he said on his tape to his kids is that he's expecting a promotion on Thursday. So there's a lot of importance placed on Thursday, but also the kids have like got this tape memorized. And I was wondering how many Thursdays actually have there been? Like how many weeks have gone by that he's been saying, "Oh, it's going to happen for me on Thursday."
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I was trying to figure out, like, are these the same tapes they listen to every day, or does he like update them once a week or even daily? I don't know. But I do like your theory that Thursday is just a metaphor. Thursday is the future that's not too far, but it's always just out of reach, you know?
Yeah, it's like Fiddler's Green. It's the Big Rock Candy Mountain. Someday we'll get to Thursday. So he's striving at his job to obtain this promotion in business. Gotta kiss the boss's butt and be there all the time. What actually kills him, though, is this crazy cab ride that you mentioned. He gets in this cab that's driven by a Satanist. I guess he's like a Charlie Manson type guy. And they're careening around this city. Are they in New York? Where are they at? Is that clear?
I don't actually know. It's not clear. I just took it to be generic suburb on the edge of the city, but I don't know where it is.
Yeah.
Could be New York. It actually reminded me of DC a little bit, but I don't know where it would be.
Right. It's this area where there's an urban center, but also you can go too far away and have like this bridge across a large gully.
Mm-hmm.
Also, this whole stunt sequence with the car seemed like it would be really expensive. Like, they had to do a lot to achieve this.
Right. And I had a lot of questions. So, like, did it just so happen that this was the moment that this cab driver went crazy? Or does he have, like, frequent fares where he drives around and, like, drives crazy and says, "Do you believe in Satan?" to the person in the back seat? I don't know. But a lot of the comedy of this boils down to Bill Cosby mugging and being like, "Save me! Stop what you're doing! You crazy person!" Just doing a lot of stinky, silly faces.
Right. And the way that he settles on to try to control the situation with the cab driver who worships Satan is to say that he himself, Bill Cosby, is Satan. He says, "Worship him! I am Satan!" And so that's Bill Cosby's legacy from this film. I am Satan. After a lot of veering around cartoonishly, they get caught dangling from the edge of a bridge. And ultimately the car does go over the side of this bridge, flips down into the river. And when Elliot, Bill Cosby, climbs up out of this ravine, he realizes that nobody can see him. So he's become a ghost. He's become Ghost Dad, Dan.
And the reveal of this is kind of goofy. There's like a cop looking at it, and the cop just ignores him. And then he's like trying to talk to him and like, "Oh, you gotta help me. There was a crazy cab driver. It fell over." And the cop is just kind of staring right at him. And then the cop pulls down his pants and starts peeing. I was like, just in the middle of the road. Like, dude, what are you doing? But Bill Cosby's like, "What are you doing?" It's like, it looks like it's going right on him. But then he realizes that it's because the guy can't see him. But I was like, why would a cop be peeing just in the middle of the road in any circumstance? Let alone like over a bridge where there's like buses driving through and stuff, you know?
Yeah, it was rather impulsive, rather implausible. But I kind of thought maybe he was like peeing off the bridge into the river.
Yeah, maybe.
Even so, it's very public.
And so this is like the signature effect of the film, Brian. This thing where he's invisible and sometimes can go through things and sometimes can't go through things.
Yeah. He walks out into the middle of the street and he passes through a bus. And so there's a shot of like him going through all the aisles of the bus, including like going through people and reacting to the oddity of that. I actually thought the effects in this movie were kind of good. I mean, they did what they needed to do. There's a lot of like green screen type stuff. But I thought they checked all the boxes of what you would need a ghost dad to do.
Yeah, I think I agree. I mean, it's kind of pitched at such a low level that I was kind of mixed on it from the start. It's like, oh, big, goofy sitcom-y stuff. And there's some things that just get repeated a little too often. But there were parts of it that I did quite like. And this is just that kind of movie that they just don't make anymore. Like the theatrically released mid-budget comedy with like good practical effects mixed with like a little bit of movie magic, you know? Mm-hmm. Like now it would just be CGI and it would be worse, you know? And I know some of this is kind of primitive CGI level type stuff, like the blending in places but still being invisible and all that. You said green screen. It's probably a sophisticated form of green screen. But I don't know. There is some charm in... It's kind of like the Ernest movies. It's like not 100% hit rate on the jokes and the things that I like, but I like movies like this broadly. Like I miss them, you know?
Right. He goes home and he confronts his children. And so there's a lot of ghost rules, and we're going to try to explain the ghost rules to you. But the strangest thing to me is he like plays charades with the kids to tell them that he's a ghost, and they figure it out, and they like figure out that that means that he's dead, and they immediately accept it.
They're like, woohoo, we got a ghost dad. That's so crazy, man. Like, what are you talking about? This is like traumatic.
Yeah, no crying, even from the youngest daughter. They're just like, oh, he's dead. We got it.
We figured out what's going on today. Like, it's another sitcom episode. There is like one beat where the youngest daughter's like, are you going to go away like mommy did? And then it's just brushed off. And then they're going back to Bill Cosby making silly faces.
So what do we know about these ghost rules? One of them is that he can only be seen when it's dark. Can't be directly illuminated. Can't be out in the sun. Can't be under an electric light. So like if you flip the light switch on, you can't see him anymore. If you turn it off, you can see him again.
But it's like, okay, this isn't the kind of movie where you're going to have a good time if you try to deconstruct every single little detail. But I already got a lot of questions here. Just this is Ghost Rule 1 out of like 18, and I'm already baffled. So like, what if you're in like dim light? It seems like it's a toggle. You're either on or you're off.
Right. You have to have some light, otherwise you wouldn't see anything. Your eyes wouldn't work.
Right, yeah. And like when they're showing him in the supposed dark, it's like sunlight's still coming in through the windows a little bit, you know? It's like, I don't know.
Right, but pretty much what they say, no daylight, no electric light. Like, yeah, it's got to be filtered. It's got to be diffuse. Also, he can't speak directly to them. He has to speak using telepathy. And he decides he's going to move his lips and telepathy at the same time, so it has the effect of talking to them. And at first, he's like, he can't get the balance right. There's like a delay between the thought words and the mouth words. And so he gets to do this like creepy voice for a bit that he says is out of sync, but is basically just a creepy voice.
Yeah, it's like, ooh, I am your dad type stuff.
Right.
And this was dumb too, because they established this rule, and then like 30 seconds later it doesn't matter because he learns how to do it, and then everybody just thinks he's talking for the rest of the movie.
But another aspect of this that I thought was similar to Soul is while he's figuring out the ghost rules, working together with his kids to figure out these rules, he gets suddenly sucked out the window, like sucked up into space, and then shot back down onto the surface of the earth in England because he's been summoned by this medium, like a parapsychologist a la Ghostbusters or something, who's this British guy. And his name is Edith, but he pronounces it Edith. And like a solid 10 minutes of runtime of this film is them debating whether that's an acceptable name for a man to have.
Yeah, it goes on and on.
But that he's got this medium who's got a foot in both worlds, the spirit realm and the human realm, and is kind of teaching him how to interact with Earth as much as possible. That's in Soul. It's also in Ghost. Have you seen Ghost with Patrick Swayze?
No.
That was another one from around this time of how do you be a ghost? What is that like? No pottery wheel scene in Ghost Dad.
Isn't there some song from that too? What's the famous song from Ghost?
And time goes by so slowly. I hunger for your touch. A long, lonely time.
Oh, Unchained Melody by the Righteous Brothers. Oh, I love that. I mean, that song's amazing. I didn't realize that was the one that's there, but it definitely didn't debut with that movie.
That's the Sexery Pottery Wheel song.
Gotcha. It came out before then, so that's also the score to one of my favorite TV scenes, the ending to one of the episodes of The Wonder Years. At a school dance where the narrator, Daniel Stern, is ruminating on the nature of fleeting young love and changing partners until maybe you find the one who's right for you. It's a very touching moment.
I need to watch more Wonder Years. I've seen a bit. So Elliot is the ghost dad, and one thing that the medium tells him is that most ghosts can only maintain their earthly presence, their connection to the mortal realm, for like 3 days tops. He says it's not a hard and fast rule, but that's usually how it works.
Isn't there all this business where it's like, oh, he was meant to be sent to the afterlife, but they made a mistake, and so now you're stuck here. And so there's already like lore that's confusing, and then they're immediately like, well, that means you have 3 days, and it's like, okay, so they messed up the afterlife and now he has 3 days. It's just like all of a sudden it's like piling on this explanation to basically get us to align with the fabled Thursday, you know?
Right. So he's got until Thursday to figure out what kind of legacy he's going to leave. And so he wants to secure this promotion at work. He's going to double down on the workaholism. And yeah, really go for it, earning this promotion, or something.
I know.
Because if it's a promotion, how is he going to keep going to work? How is he going to keep earning the money? It's almost like he's like trying to secure his place in a will or something.
I know. It's really dumb. It's like, you're right. It's like, it would make a lot more sense if it was, I'm going to achieve a milestone that the achievement of that milestone is the payoff, you know?
Right, like one last heist or something.
Exactly, yeah. But
oh man, Ghost Heist. People would watch Ghost Heist.
You know what, Brian? We should be Hollywood executives. I would watch Ghost Heist. But you're right, because promotion just means you get a higher pay rate, you know? Like, oh, maybe his pension or his death benefit is better or something like that. But I don't know.
They might say that. It might have something to do with life insurance. Like he'll qualify for a higher life insurance payout. That may be it. That might be the explanation.
But wouldn't they, like, I don't know, look at the death certificate and be like, no, he died before he got promoted? That doesn't make any sense.
Then there'd just be a lot of questions.
From my experience, you need paperwork. Yeah. But it's also weird because he's not like, I have 3 days, I'm going to make things right with my kids and stuff. Or like, I'm going to set my family up and like let them know how to live their life. He's like, oh, 3 days left. Well, I better get that promotion. It just does not make any sense. I was like, I was totally confused.
Clearly the right answer is spend time with your kids. You didn't do it in life. You have this opportunity to do it now. That's what he's supposed to learn. That's what he eventually learns, but it's clear to the viewer from the start.
There's more ghost rules here with the medium, like stuff about flickering means that you're about to go to the afterlife. So if you start flickering, that means the end is near. And I don't know. Another ghost rule that just really actually had me thinking. I had to pause the movie and ponder this one. So ghosts are not corporeal. So they can like go through walls. Sure, it makes sense. I guess it makes sense if you're floating. That's like, it's pretty clear. You can float from one space to another space. But he's walking. He's still like perambulating as if a person on his 2 legs. But I guess that means he's like making contact with the ground and walking. But at one point, when he walks in his house, he like falls through the floor as if the floor is a wall. And this had me wondering, well, how come he wasn't doing this outside? What is it? Is the ground is different, I guess? Like, but then later he figures it out. And it just seems like his corporeality is very ill-defined, very fuzzy borders on that.
Absolutely. There's a lot of time spent where he's like learning the process of being solid sometimes and passing through things only when he wants to pass through things. And the balance that he eventually strikes is being pretty much solid pretty much all the time, to the point that he's just the Invisible Man. It's not so much that he's a ghost, he's H.G. Wells as the Invisible Man. And that was a Universal film. This is a Universal film.
Oh, interesting.
And he eventually goes out in public with his face all wrapped in bandages like the Invisible Man, and he's got the shades on and he's got the like fedora hat on. He's basically just the Invisible Man.
I did pick up that reference. I was like, oh, this is like the Invisible Man movie. Yeah.
But there's like a sequence where to progress with this potential promotion, he's got to go get a physical. And so how does he get a physical when he's dead? And he's like using the tape recorder as a heartbeat. And he's holding up a med school skeleton to have an x-ray taken.
Oh, yeah. This actually might have been my favorite sequence in the movie. It was very goofy. And it was actually ghost dad-ish as the joke. It's like, well, he can't be x-rayed because he's a ghost. So how does he do that? He can't be seen because we know the ghost rule is you can't be seen in the light. How does he get around that if he's getting a physical exam? And like that segment I actually thought was like promise of the premise. We're checking the boxes of like what I expected Ghost Dad to be here, you know? Although like getting a physical is not really a dad thing. I mean, it's an everyone thing, but you know, still.
Right. It's goofing with the ghost stuff.
Yeah.
But one of the things that he is solid for is he goes to visit this neighbor who's interested in him. And he's like, I'm sorry I've been blowing you off so far in the movie. I've been going through a lot of stuff. And she's like, oh, it's all right. And they start having sex, basically. She initiates physical intimacy. And he's solid enough for that, for the most part. But then I think he, like, falls through the bed or something.
Yeah, this was half-baked. This was like, all right, we got a premise where there's a guy who's a ghost. Let's, like, come up with 6 ideas. And the very first 6 ideas we come up with are going to be the set pieces in this film. And one of them was, maybe he's got a girlfriend and he tries to have sex with her. But, like, it doesn't really get any further than that. You're right. It's like it's something like, oh, they fall through the bed or something. But you're even leaving out the build up to this gag, which also was so stupid. So the Thursday deal, it's coming up, but they're like, well, we're going to do the negotiations early, or like preliminary negotiations. And they all show up at his house. And so he's like, oh, well, this is what I've been working for, so I'm going to go here. And then as he walks in, someone says like, oh, your girlfriend came by. And then he gets like this, oh no, look on his face, and goes across the street to go, canoodle with her while these businessmen are waiting in his house. I was like, dude, just blow off the girlfriend. Like, literally, you're about to be expunged from existence, and you've determined your one goal is to get this promotion. And you're going to blow that off for like this fling that you have? I don't know.
That's a great point. I didn't even think about that because I was so hung up on he is really solid for a ghost.
Yeah. Yeah. And that kind of brings me to an overarching complaint, which is that I said, okay, what are the first 6 gags that you come up with if a guy's a ghost, a suburban guy's a ghost? But honestly, it doesn't even get that far, because like half of these gags are, what is something bad that would happen to a suburban dad? Like, oh, he's got to close a business deal while he wants to spend time with his family and his girlfriend. That has nothing to do with being a ghost. And that's what like half the jokes are. The whole thing where he has to go talk to his girlfriend, but they're waiting to close the business deal in his house, and he doesn't have enough time to do all the stuff in his life. Nothing to do with him being a ghost. And so I was just like, this movie has no idea what it's doing here.
You need to go back to the drawing board, Ghost Dad.
Give me more Ghost Dad. I want every single scene and joke to be, yes, this is Ghost Dad. That's what this joke is.
And there's a few subplots that we're revisiting and updating and advancing over the course of the movie. Some more memorable than others. One of the things is, so they've got this like supernatural secret they got to keep. So of course you need a nosy neighbor who's just always on the verge of noticing that something is amiss. And in this case, it's a friend of the son. The middle child has a friend who Bill Cosby describes as a Republican. He's like a well-to-do, like Francis from Pee-wee's Big Adventure kid, he's like the rich boy who brags about possessions, I guess. The things that he owns. I wonder, Dan, have you watched a lot of shows where like the central premise is the family, the like otherwise normal suburban family, has this supernatural secret they got to keep?
Oh man, I'd have to think about that. Do you have a couple in mind?
Oh, there's so many, especially in like the classic sitcom era. But there's Bewitched, and I Dream of Jeannie, and My Favorite Martian, and then later on there was Alf. In the 80s, there was Alf, where they've got a puppet alien who they gotta hide.
Oh, is Third Rock from the Sun? Isn't that another one?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so in that case, I guess it's the family, the whole family is odd, and they're, like, existing in the world, and they gotta keep their oddities a secret. The one that sticks out to me is I Dream of Jeannie, so if you'll permit me for a second here, Dan, I just want to talk about Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie.
Sure.
So in Bewitched, the conflict makes sense to me. That she is a witch and she's married to a muggle, basically, a non-magical human man, and she's got to like keep her magic a secret. Can't be doing witch stuff all the time in the wider world, but it's because, like in Harry Potter, there's this whole like parallel society of witches. And there's also, like, most of the witches are against her arrangement. They're not down with the fact that she is involved with a mortal. And so there's, like, this opposing force of all the witches. That they can't just have dominion over the earth. But in I Dream of Jeannie, no such limitations. Major Nelson is this astronaut who like finds the genie bottle on a beach while he's out on a mission one day, and he's got this genie who's like madly in love with him, infinite cosmic powers, can just do anything for him, and lives to serve. And she's like, "Oh, master, what would you have me do?" And he is just a stick in the mud. Like, that's the conflict, is he doesn't want anything out of the normal. He just wants a humdrum existence for some reason I can't understand. The only thing holding him back is his own inhibitions. Tony Nelson should just be master of the earth.
I hadn't really thought about it.
As far as I can tell, he should just be a demigod.
I mean, you kind of hit on like the omnipotence problem in fiction. It's like if you give your characters the power to do literally anything, it's impossible to have conflict, you know? A movie that I reference a lot, given that I just kind of watched it on a whim and I didn't like it, is this movie called Status Update. I think from like 2018 or something like that. So the premise is Ross Lynch, who's the star of Teen Beach Movie. He's the star of this. He's in high school and he gets on his phone an app that grants wishes. That's the premise. His app grants wishes. It doesn't present limitations. It doesn't present quibbles or gotchas or anything like that. It's just like so now, okay, what immediately would you start doing? Well, of course, you would immediately start abusing that power if you were essentially now God. Like, you can just change whatever you want. But, like, he just takes it to school and broods, and then he, like, one of the first things is he makes his bully slip on his skateboard. Wow, you really went crazy with that wish. You showed reality who's boss. He made the bully slip on a skateboard.
You could turn the bully into a skateboard.
You could vaporize him and have his blood dust the ground. Like, you could do whatever you wanted. And he's going to slip on a skateboard. And then, like, he wants to join in this rock band or impress this rock girl or something. So he makes himself a great singer. And basically, like, it backfires a little because now he sings, like, opera style. It's like, okay, he's a great singer. He sings opera style, whatever. I guess that's a little bit of a quibble. But, like, you're still shooting real low with your wishes here. Like, what about give me all of the money on the earth, or like give me 100 supermodel girlfriends, or like what would a 16-year-old be doing with wishes? Not like make my bully slip on a skateboard. I don't think.
Right. You gotta channel Elmo and make everyday Christmas so that it shuts down civilization in the Western world.
Exactly.
What are some of these other subplots though? Back to Ghost Dad.
Yeah. One is there's a boyfriend for the teenage daughter, the older teenage daughter, or like a potential boyfriend, a guy macking on her. Who, did you recognize this boyfriend, Brian?
Who was it?
He's, I think it's, the character's name is Bobby. He's one of the guys in Twin Peaks.
Oh.
And I was like, I know this guy. And I stared at him. I was like, who is he? Who is he? And I couldn't figure it out. I had to look it up. I was like, that's exactly who he is. He's the guy from Twin Peaks. But he just plays like a D-bag high schooler. But this introduces new ghost rules, because what he does to scare off the boyfriend is he like puts his hand through the phone and the hand comes out of the boyfriend's phone and he chokes him like across space and time.
I loved this. I wasn't expecting it. It's like Freddy, one of the later Freddy movies. He goes through the phone and is like licking somebody's ear, but here it's Bill Cosby strangling this white boy, and it's unexpected.
The resolution with the nosy neighbor might have been my favorite moment, because he floats up to his window, and doesn't he say he's an alien or something like that?
The neighbor is like, give me, I don't even remember what the stipulation is, but it basically, you owe me money, or I'm going to tell everybody that I know you're an alien.
So what Ghost Dad does is he floats up to the window of this guy, but he's like carrying like a flashlight or something with him, and he turns on the flashlight, and we know that when there's light on him, he disappears. So like, it's this kind of nifty, almost horror effect where his face disappears, but you still see like the outline of him in the clothes and stuff. And the kid starts screaming.
Yeah, I like that. the boyfriend of the daughter, what sets Bill Cosby off, I mean, from the beginning, Bill Cosby doesn't really like him, but the boyfriend calls the house, and the ghost dad picks up the phone, and the boy's like, oh, is Diane there? And he says, no, this is her father. And then he says, put the bitch on the phone.
It's like, this dude is over the top D-bag high schooler boyfriend, just the worst. Put that bitch on. I was like, come on, dude.
Yeah, it's not even an aside. It's not even under his breath. It's like, it's not that you didn't know that the dad picked up because he said this is her dad, and that's what you're going to say?
That actually made me laugh, but it's just so ridiculous.
That warrants Ghost Dad blasting through the phone.
You were on Ghost Dad's side at this point.
At that moment, yes.
Yeah.
The son, Ghost Dad's son, who's 10 or 11 or whatever, is into magic. That's his hobby. He has a Houdini poster on his wall. It's not the same Houdini poster that Max Magician and I have. It's a different Houdini poster. Go to our Discord again. See these two different Houdini posters. But he wants to be a magician. That's his aspiration in life. And his story beat, his thing that he's working towards is he has career day at school. And the way they do career day is the kid has to demonstrate a job in the classroom, I guess, which I don't think is how it normally works. I think they usually have the parents come in and talk about their jobs, or just adults come in and talk about their jobs. It's not really on the kids so much.
Yeah, no aspect of this story made sense. A science fair might have made a little more sense, but you got to tie in, oh, it's what the kid really wants to do. He wants to do magic. But yeah, you have to do a full-on demonstration of your career. What? That's not what career day is.
And you have to prove you're good at it for a grade.
And this is another one where okay, well, what does this have to do with him being a ghost? But it happens to be the same time as another business negotiation. And because he's got what is it, a trunk, the trunk of doom or something like that. And so he starts doing his demonstration in front of the class, and everyone is laughing at him, including the teachers, rolling, laughing at him because he gets stuck in the trunk.
Yeah, he's gasping for breath.
And they're oh, what a nerd, what a loser, what a dweeb. And then, okay, here's what didn't make sense. In the middle of the business negotiation, he gets a call from the secretary of the school or something like that, which would imply that this news got to the secretary. The secretary thought to call, found the correct business number, called it, and then Bill Cosby now had time to go over there to help him out with it. This timing did not make any sense whatsoever to me. I did not understand the chronology of what was happening here.
Yeah, so maybe he was in this trunk for an hour.
That's what I would estimate based on all the things that had to happen. He's writhing and suffocating in this chest.
It was a slow day. Can't blame the teacher too much.
But the resolution on this one did at least pay off on the invisibility gag, because he lifts up the trunk as if it's by magic to lift it up.
Yeah. So at this point is when Ghost Dad has finally learned, oh, wait a minute, it's not about working towards this promotion. It's about bonding with my children with the time that I have left. And so he runs off to the school and helps with the magic act using his ghost powers. And hovers the son out of the chest. And the teacher says, "You're getting an A." I don't know. Grades have inflated so much over the years. Grade inflation is a real thing. Getting an A now is not like getting an A then. Back then you had to do something to get an A. These days it's you just have to not forget to turn in assignments. That's coming from me as a current graduate student. Is it's just do what they tell you to do and check all the boxes, and you are set.
Right. Showing up is 80% of success. But it's kind of because so much emphasis was placed on them that, like, it incentivized schools and teachers to give kids a boost if they wanted them to get to college. Because it's like, oh, well, we'll make it so if you get an A+, or if you do an AP class, we add on an extra 0.3, so you can get a 4.3. And then, like, some of that stuff stacks. And, like, there were kids in my sister's high school who had, like, a 4.7 GPA. It was like, okay, now this is just completely made up. Like, in 4.0 was supposed to be the cap. That was, like, what the rule was. 4.0 means you're straight A's. Boom, you got it. You can't do better than that. But now, like, all of a sudden, you can start adding in these values, and numbers are meaningless now, Brian.
Right, and it's truly a slippery slope, because then once people are getting numbers like that, it's like everybody has to also get those numbers to keep up. Like, you know, and if you say, oh, our school has X percentage of A students, it's like the other schools want to catch up with that. And we did a class on teaching in this program, this MFA program. And one of the things we read was about that the professor, like, the students are customers of the professor, and they want a certain customer experience. Like, what exactly are they buying? And, like, is it a positive experience in the class and a high grade that they can walk away with? Is that what they're buying?
Right. Interesting. So yeah, it's skewed incentives.
And that the reviews from the students are what keep the teacher employed. And so they are, like, incentivized to earn positive reviews from the students. And what does that mean?
Interesting. So to be, like, easy and stuff, I guess, probably.
Yeah. It's like the wheels get greased a certain way, and then that's how they slide. Anyway, that was kind of a tangent. But yeah, I laughed when he's like, "You're getting an A." On what? Show and tell? This is like a grade school. What is it like? What is the weight? It sounds important. The way the teacher says it sounds important, but I did not realize this assignment carried so much weight. There's not too much more in this movie. Although, there is an important twist, because suddenly Edith, the medium, comes running. I guess he's traveled all the way from England in person. And he comes running up and he says, "I determined you aren't dead. Your soul has just been astrally projected out of your body. And so your body is out there somewhere."
Okay, Ghost Dad, sure. Fuck me up, Ghost Dad, whatever you say.
By the way, this is Soul. This is Soul 2019 from Pixar. They realize, oh, your body actually, it fell down to the bottom of the manhole, and, like, the trauma through your soul disconnected you from your corporeal form, but you're not really dead, and you can go back if you play things right.
So in fact, Ghost Dad is a lie. He's not really a ghost. That's the twist. New ghost rule, by the way, like, you can go into your body and come back to life, like in Hercules with the fates and the ghosts and stuff, you know?
Yeah. And while they're discussing this and figuring out, okay, well, where actually is his body so that he can go back into it? Oh, by the way, being able to be a ghost is hereditary. So that's another ghost rule. They say it passes through your genes. A proclivity to be a ghost. Because there was a throwaway line earlier, seemingly a throwaway line, that one time Ghost Dad's dad had dressed up in a bunny costume for his birthday, but the zipper was broken and he had to be in the bunny suit for a whole week. Apparently, at some point, he had a traumatic experience that cast his soul from his husk, and his solution was to be in a bunny suit for a week.
Sure. that was his choice, to be in a bunny suit. I wonder, maybe that's what Bill Cosby should have done for his physical exam or whatever.
And while they're discussing this, the daughter dies. She falls on that roller skate from the opening 5 minutes of the movie and just careens down the stairs and breaks all her bones. And then the next thing is that she's like on a gurney at the hospital.
But she only semi-dies, just like Bill Cosby only semi-died.
That's right, because it runs in the family that you semi-die and then have to put your soul back. And there's like some back and forth about the daughter would rather be a ghost than her repressive human life. But I didn't really buy that, and it's not important because both of their bodies are there at the hospital, and what it boils down to is, okay, let's get back in our bodies.
Right. Convenient, by the way, it's the same hospital, and they're like, even though the body's verging on dead, that they've like just kind of kept it in the care. I guess so. We're to take that he hadn't actually passed away; he was still alive this whole time. So he was in like the special care unit or something like that.
Yeah, and like the cab driver had stolen his wallet or something. So like the only ID they found was they like misidentified the two bodies. So they didn't know to call anybody connected to him because he was associated with the cab driver's ID. But he's back now. He puts himself in his body, and now he's got a new lease on life. And he knows that's what's important is pay attention, spend time with your family while you've got them. And also the neighbor is there, and so he like connects with her. And they all are a happy family. Credits are about to roll. They walk out of the hospital, and the crazy satanic cab driver is out there. So I guess somehow he survived. I'm not really sure about that.
Yeah. I gotta be honest, I was pretty checked out at this point. I was like, everything is made up. There are no rules. I can't trust my own eyes in this film.
No stakes. What we thought was true is not. But the cab driver is like, my dark lord and master, because remember, Bill Cosby said he was Satan. What is your bidding? And Bill Cosby says, go to hell and wait for me. And that's how Ghost Dad ends. Bill Cosby's final word on the matter, go to hell and wait for me. And of course, there's like an original R&B pop song over the credits.
Oh, yeah. Staple of this kind of movie. The 90s family live action film.
We did it, Dan. Ghost Dad from 1990. Important part of the fatherhood film canon. So what are you thinking? What are you feeling?
Well, I guess a couple things. So one is I kind of opened our discussion by saying, hey, it is what it says. It's Ghost Dad. And like maybe in broad strokes it is. But like when you zoom in on any specific plot or any beat, it really isn't that. It's kind of confusing what's going on. Like it's not actually Ghost Dad in specifics. I mean, like it's got enough Ghost Dad material that you can explain it as Ghost Dad and make a trailer of Ghost Dad, but like there's just not a lot of control of what's going on here. And even like all this stuff we were saying, like, oh, this is stupid, this doesn't make sense, I still feel is like underselling the tonal whiplash of this. Like the sort of whimsical nature that it's treating death. It's like, I don't know, it's like, oh, my dad got a red stripe on his head that he needs to hide from everyone else because it's embarrassing he got a red stripe on his head. Like it's treated with that level of seriousness, you know? Like that he's died and left the mortal plane, you know? And it's just a baffling film. I mean, you're right that it's not like the worst to watch in the sense that some of the effects are okay, and I don't know, it's like it's shenanigans. It's easy to watch shenanigans. It's not like actively unprofessionally made in any sort of way. I would never call it one of the worst movies I've ever seen, but it's just baffling from start to finish.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I'm feeling pretty much the same way. I'm glad that Ghost Dad was there for me in my time of need. needed to pick a dad film, and okay, well, what is Brian going to latch onto in Dad Month? Well, is there a film that's got ghosts in it? Is there some kind of like family spooky film that still meets the dad criteria? Well, there it is. Ghost Dad. Just the perfect package for me to be my first selection of the month. So for that, I think it's worthwhile, but it is really just strange. So many things will have you scratching your head if you pop this one into your VCR.
And that's if you can get over the wholesome suburban white-collar dad Bill Cosby as the star.
Yeah. What is Bill Cosby getting up to? He's got some line like, "That's the thing about being a ghost. Lights off or lights on, I'm still there."
As my dad once told me, you know? Just kidding. So I guess thinking about the dad factor of this film, Brian. So just evaluating, I guess, how much is being a dad central to the story? Definitely central to the story, you know? I would say being Ghost is a little bit fuzzier in its implementation, but this is like a family comedy about a dad, for sure. But this is the kind of dad that I find really annoying. I like good movie dads. Good movie dads are excited to be dads, and like it's their moral compass is about them like wanting to be a good dad, and there's like a humility in that. Like, I don't quite understand my kid, but I love them and I'll do whatever I can to support them. Like those are some of the elements that make really good movie dads. Like, okay, Josh Hamilton in 8th Grade, the movie 8th Grade, which is like about an awkward 8th grade girl. Great movie, by the way. But I really like the dad in that movie because he doesn't get everything right, but like he's just very present and supportive. And even when he doesn't understand his daughter, which is most of the film, he's like trying to figure it out and trying to be there for her. But this is like the sort of version of the dad where, oh, father always knows best. You got to listen to whatever your dad says. And like almost annoyed at his kids for existing. It's not quite that bad, but it's like, there's just a stubbornness in his fatherhood that I found off-putting, I guess. What did you think of him as a movie dad, Brian?
So, pros and cons, I suppose. Like, he's the only parent in this situation. So, that's a lot of responsibility, obviously. But you're right that the tone is kind of all over the place. Is he a silly goofball, or is he like a domineering presence? And from scene to scene, you can't really answer that conclusively.
Mm-hmm.
So, not the best. Certainly a dad, though.
Right.
More dad than Ghost. Are we ready then to say if it's good, Dan?
Sure. So I'll talk us in. Is it good is our signature section where we each give the movie a rating on our 8-point goodness scale, ranging from very not good, which is a 1 out of 8, to our masterpiece rating, toward a good. I don't think we'll be hearing this one today, but you never know. That's an 8 out of 8. So I guess I'll go first since you picked the film, Brian. Is Ghost Dad good? And just to kind of reiterate what I said a minute ago, not the worst movie ever made. I would never accuse it of that. I wouldn't put it on the list of worst movies I've seen. It scratches an itch of movies that I miss. Like I said, like the mid-budget live action shenanigans family comedy. You know, I always like watching those kinds of movies, even though on average, maybe they're not like the highest specimen of cinema, but there's a certain cinematic experience to watching something like that CGI fantasy adventures just can't replace. There's a lot going against Ghost Dad. So the voice is the Bill Cosby thing. And even if this was like outstandingly executed, it would be tough for me to get over that. It's also not outstandingly executed. It's just half-baked sitcom beats of varying level of ghostiness and daddiness throughout this 1.5-hour runtime, with just like a strange arc about like you have 3 days to live, but your goal is to get your promotion before you go to the afterlife, even though you're already dead. I don't know. It never fully registers. I'm going to give this one a 2, a not good. Veering lower on the 2, but we'll land on a not good, a 2 out of 8. Really should have figured out the tone a little bit more, I think. I don't know. I don't know how you make Ghost Dad and like handle death in a serious way while still being a sitcom, but whatever, if that exists, they did not figure it out. So that's me on Ghost Dad. What about you, Brian?
So I'm right there with you. I'm going to give it a 2, not good, but like the highest end of a 2, almost a not good, because I think it delivers what it promises. There's a lot of ghost rules. It's fairly complicated what a ghost is, and then it ultimately turns out he's not actually a ghost. So I guess then, like, whatever he is, convenient that the ghost rules all still apply.
You're right, though. Zoom out, and it's a Ghost Dad movie.
That's right. And I thought it was reasonably well put together. Like, I was vibing. There's like this spooky kind of organ-infused score that plays at the start that's still like silly, and it set the right tone for Ghost Dad. Like, the typography was good. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I don't know if forgettable is the right word. It was strange enough that I may not forget it. But nothing is great about it. And obviously it leaves the aftertaste in your mouth of, oh, you've watched a Bill Cosby project, and now that we know what all was going on with Bill Cosby, it's like, can we in good conscience recommend a Bill Cosby film? The film itself, though, I mean, not terrible, not the worst movie. I liked some of the effects. I thought it was kooky. It was a kooky film, which I think is what you want from Ghost Dad.
Sure.
He passes through a bus. He is like struggles to stand on the floor. So there are ghost hijinks, ghost pratfalls. Yeah, not the best father film ever made, but I'm glad that we watched it. Thank you for taking this journey with me, Dan, here on episode 199.
One last timely bit of info on Ghost Dad. So the end credits song, I think it's performed by Gladys Knight, great Motown singer. I think she was Motown. She did Midnight Train to Georgia and a couple of other classic tracks. And the song was written by Diane Warren. So Diane Warren has become something of a punchline recently for movie fans because she writes she's written a lot of pop music, but what she's kind of best known for is basically writing this kind of song, the end movie credits song. And she's been doing that for decades now, writing end movie credits songs. And like now it's the streak goes back, I think, to 2016 or 17. Every single year she gets nominated for best original song and she never wins it. It's like Red Herring in Scooby-Doo, a pup named Scooby-Doo. It's like a running gag at this point. And so sure enough, she was nominated this year for, let me look it up real quick. It's The Journey, a song called The Journey from a film that I'm sure you and all of our audience have seen, Brian, called The 688.
In the Buzzed on Movies Oscar death race every year, they talk about the song nomination, best original song, and that often it comes from a movie that gets no other nominations, so you got to go track it down just to hear the song, which is often completely separate from the film, just during the credits.
Right, it's in the credits, yeah. It's like the Diane Warren tax if you're an Oscar death race. It's like you're gonna be watching some dumb bad movie that she wrote a credit song for because Diane Warren is friends with everyone in the Academy. They're like, oh yeah, let's get right. You know what? You know who could use an Academy Award nomination these days? Diane Warren. Here, have your 18th Oscar nomination, and it seriously is up to. I think it's at least it's got to be getting close to 15, if not more than 15 at this point. Her most famous one, though, is I Don't Want to Miss a Thing from Armageddon, which you and I were trading messages about earlier today because it's in the Criterion collection.
Yeah, anytime Dan brings up something that praises the Criterion Collection, features the Criterion Collection, I bring up Armageddon, which is one of the inductees, and I think he's getting sick of it. But it's the kind of thing where once that's part of the lineup, it kind of colors the whole lineup. I mean, say what you will, I just also today watched the Donald Trump movie, but it's like it kind of changes the whole perception of the presidency once he's part of the lineup. It's like that's how I feel about Armageddon in the Criterion Collection. It changes what it means.
Maybe, but I feel like you're also overselling how different that is and how, like, I don't know what, worse or less arty than it is than some of the other movies that are in the Criterion Collection. Like, there's mumblecore movies in there, and there's other stuff. Like, at the end of the day, Criterion just publishes movies that they want people to buy. It's like not a Hall of Fame or anything like that, you know? I mean, they kind of sell themselves as that, but they're really just a DVD publisher. They want you to buy their physical media.
Sure, but, like, okay, so is Godzilla 1998 a Criterion film? Is Independence Day a Criterion film?
To me, well, they do have a whole line of Godzilla movies. They don't have 1998. They do have a bunch of them in there. You could maybe make the case, but the thing about Armageddon is that it's a Michael Bay movie, and Michael Bay is like the auteur of explosion trash. So like there is an element of like you're getting a dabble of all of the cinematic tastes in the Criterion Collection. Like to me, it's more worthy of being like included in like a lineup of things that tell you about movies and their merits and the different interesting ways they can be crafted than like the 17th Marvel movie would be or something like that, you know? It's like it's at least got the flavor of being a Michael Bay movie. Also, to be clear, I haven't seen Armageddon, so like I'm mostly playing devil's advocate on this.
We'll do Armageddon at some point. Maybe
it sounds like we gotta, yeah.
Yeah, it probably at this point it should happen pretty soon. Yeah, I mean it's just kind of a dumb action movie. I like it. I like Armageddon. I would give it a positive rating. I just think it's funny, and I always will think it's funny that it's part of this like highbrow art set of films where people talk about the spine numbers on the DVD cases, like, oh, you're part of the pantheon now, and one of those numbers goes to Armageddon, where Ben Affleck, I think it might be Matt Damon, one of those guys is like sticking animal crackers into Liv Tyler's panties, and he's got like some like sexy David Attenborough spiel about how they're seeking, you know, shelter in her underwear.
Well, I guess we have something to look forward to, Brian, on that note.
Thanks everybody for joining us here on The Goods as part of Dad Month. What is next, Dan?
Yeah, so as we kind of opened this episode with, the one that you're listening to right now, episode 199, which means our next one is the 200th episode. At some point we'll do a spectacular where we look back on the 50 most recent episodes and do some favorites across that span. But the 200th episode itself will be a normal episode where we talk about a film and we rate it. And as Brian mentioned, we sometimes like to do special ones. And there's a movie that I feel very strongly about. I think Brian does too. We'll find out just how far he goes down that path. I've already talked about it on a podcast before, actually, on Andrew Milne's. He's Thrash, we also call him, because that's his username on the Discord. He has a podcast, a movie podcast that I guest appeared on one time. And that is a film with one of my favorite movie dads being Goofy from A Goofy Movie. A film we've often referenced, and it's a core Dan text, let's say. So this would be like a candidate for a birthday movie, like that level core text for me. So we'll be talking A Goofy Movie for our 200th episode, Brian.
All right, I'm excited. It's been in our minds, been on our hearts for a long time. So good and fitting, I think, that it will be brought into discussion for episode 200 as the central film, the middle of the 5 of Dad Month.
All right. Well, thanks, Brian. Thanks, listeners. And we'll see you for episode 200.
Thank you. Careful on the stairs.
Why would there ever even be roller skates on the stairs? Like, what's the scenario that leads to there being roller skates on the stairs?
Well, you know, it's like you take your roller skates off, you go into the house, and you don't want to go all the way to put them wherever they're supposed to be. So you just set them there on the stairs.
But they're at the top of the stairs.
It was strange. It seems unlikely.
All right. See you later, Brian.
Bye, everybody. Thanks. See you soon.